It's an interesting offseason for San Francisco fans. This fan base seems so frustrated. And it's not just that the Dodgers and Padres seem like they're printing money and spending like there's no tomorrow, but also the Giants, they missed out on Judge, kind of, I suppose. They missed out on Correa, but that was by their choice a little bit. Bryce Harper years ago, Ohtani the first time, Ohtani the second time, Yamamoto. Should this fan base be frustrated, or is that just part of baseball in this day and age? There are some stars. You don't get all of them. I know they'd like just one of them, but it seems like they're going to get none of them.
I think in this offseason, if they don't get another piece or two, they should be very frustrated, because I think they've been very patient because they have the equity of the 3 titles in this century, right? So I understand that they're probably looking around going, okay, we have it better than basically anyone else over the past 15 years, but eventually it's got to turn around again. And I think the product on the field too is what was talked about a lot, right? When you watch Giants games the last couple of years, it's like, I don't like what I'm seeing on the field, even if if you're mixing and matching with the platooning and that it's not an aesthetically pleasing version of baseball. Actually, put it this way. So I was back and forth on the shifts over the years, and eventually I was like, no, ban the shift or at least restrict it, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I said that was I was like, this is still entertainment. It's a game. It's veering off of what it was, and it's ugly. I was like, so for me as the fan, I don't like it. And if we change it, it's just going back to what it was essentially.
Right.
So I was like, I'm actually all for this because I don't like this version of what I'm spending 3.5 hours on. That's how I felt watching the Giants pretty often last year. Super mediocre, like not something I can really feel like I can grip myself to. I felt like a lot of fans felt that way. They've had some problems developing, not just position players, but hitters, right? Long-term hitters since the Posey era. And obviously when you lose someone like that, and the Cardinals are going through this with Yadi Molina, the catchers are the quarterbacks. They affect everything way more than people think. I like Bailey, but they have to spend. Like at this point that we're doing this right now, Blake Snell is still a free agent. I think that he is someone who likes the West Coast.
Yeah.
But if the New York Yankees offer more than the San Francisco Giants, he's pitched there. He'd have fun there too. So in my mind, if the Giants feel like they're kind of stuck in the mud right now, you got to just kick some ass and offer more, right? You have to offer more than what the other teams are offering and overpay. That's fine. That happens sometimes. But for me, I think Blake Snell's the answer in that rotation to add to, I like the Robbie Ray pickup from Seattle. I think they were taking advantage of the Mariners dumping some longer term money. So I think they're on a pathway there. And then I think a Matt Chapman fits really nicely because I also think that Dude, Chappie is a guy
I do.
I know there's a lot of debate about what his hitting profile looks like long term, but he's always been at least average to above average at the plate, right? And I still think he'll be able to provide that for years to come.
Yeah.
And then defensively, he's actually a tick lower than he was because he was like generational and now he's just elite.
I blame it on the turf. Fine. I blame it on the turf in Toronto, but that's just me.
That's fair.
No, but to your point, me, like, the bat,
this guy's a guy.
He is.
He's a guy you build around, like,
exactly,
within and on the field.
Exactly.
So those two signings, and obviously Lee was at it. Like then I'm feeling good about the offseason.
I totally agree with you, and I think Chappie, to your point, even throw all the stats out the window. Which the only thing I'll say offensively, he hits the baseball hard. Like his exit velocity, his barrels. This guy, I mean. The batting average, on-base percentage, I get it. That's what you hope improves. But he knows how to make contact. But to your point, he's got that aura that he emits. He is a clubhouse leader. He's the boombox guy. He's also like Bob Melvin's default son, the son that Bob never had. And quite honestly, I saw that relationship. And that's why I'm telling Giants fans, like, you need this. You don't know you need this yet. But to a kind of a vanilla team that has been for recent years, you need a Matt Chapman to spice things up just a little bit.
He's a winner.
Hey, Jung-Hoo Lee, you mentioned him, a guy who wears 51. I was at first like, wait, is that an Ichiro thing? And then he says, yeah, like I kind of modeled my game. And if you watch his swing, man, he's got an Ichiro-ish swing. He doesn't hit a lot of doubles and triples or homers, but he hits a lot of singles. And you know what? I don't know what the conversion rate is. I don't know what he hits in Major League Baseball, but even if it's 275, 280, and he's a consistent hitter and he's your leadoff guy, my goodness, that was a good signing.
Absolutely. And for me, I've seen mixed reviews scouting report wise on his defense, like how good it is. So I'm curious to see what that looks like, right? Yeah. I mean, I haven't watched enough games, obviously. I've only seen highlights of him to really know what he's bringing to the table there. But if he is above average even as a center fielder and he's making that type of contact and he's like a Luis Ariz type, who I'm a huge fan of with Miami. You can't have 9 of them, but if you have 1 or 2 of them, it's perfect. I think teams have gotten really smart with finding a blend in their bullpen. I think the same thing applies with a lineup. It doesn't have to be everyone does the same exact thing. Even the Dodgers just did that. Teoscar Hernandez is not a Dodgers type player, but I think they did that on purpose. They're like, we need a guy. Cyrus was on a show the other day, who I think he lives in that area, in the Bay Area.
Yep.
And he's like, can Teoscar Hernandez be like an Adolis Garcia, where he just goes on an absolute freaking heater and he's the hottest player for 10 days and he crushes every mistake. So you can't make the mistake or you got to walk him. And he's not even a guy that usually walks, but now he's walking. Like Teoscar Hernandez is capable of being that. So anyway, I believe I'm a fan of the signing. I think they probably overpaid for him, right? Based on what the market looked like.
You have to. Yep.
And who cares?
Yep.
If you're a fan, your job is not to worry about the payroll of a team. And the Giants are a big market team, and they're not complaining about money right now, as far as I know. So go run loose. But yeah, I'm cool with Lee. I don't know exactly what he's going to bring to the table, but I think his floor is pretty high, which makes me. I don't know how high his ceiling is,
right?
But I think his floor is high.
It's a great way to put it.
Average player. Which is he worth that contract as an average player? No, he's got to perform as an at least above average player. But I don't think like you're looking at someone like this and going, this is a total bust. He's not going to be able to hit big league pitching. Like, no, he's not a power guy. And he probably won't be. He might hit 5 home runs, but if he hits 320 for you and he plays above average center field, you're good. That's how much that costs.
Yep. I like what you said about Robbie Ray. I think that's a good addition too, even though they're not going to get him for this first half of the season. At some point, he's still recovering from the Tommy John, but I just think you also need to add somebody for Logan Webb at the very top. You do need a 1-2 punch, and obviously Blake Snell would fit that perfectly. You don't know who the 1 and the 2 is, but you have a 1-2. But for Logan Webb, 2023 Cy Young runner-up, right, in the National League. I mean, I still think the biggest things for him are definitely still ahead. They're not behind him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's in his prime right now. So I think what we saw from him this past season can happen again. And hey, this is why you can go out and spend $200 million on Blake Snell, because you have a number 1 starting pitcher who signed, what was it, almost a year ago, 5 years, $90 million, which very quickly looked like a massive bargain. The other thing is there's very few guys that eat innings in baseball like that anymore. I mean, he had 216 innings. So yeah, he's great. He fits perfectly in that ballpark, fits perfectly in that city in my mind. The only thing is, because the Giants didn't feel confident in the rest of their staff, aside from him and Alex Cobb at times, it turned into so much mixing and matching with their pitching staff. And I actually think it hurt them from a reputation standpoint, where I do know actually from some conversations that, an agent or a player's like, hey, if I signed here, like I'm a starter, right? You're not going to mess around with me, So I think they have to establish that a little bit more. Do you have to have 5 that are incredible, that are giving you 200 innings? No one has that anymore. But I think you do need some guys that you can just say, hey, we're going to plug them in every 5th day, or even sometimes every 6th day if they're young. And Logan Webb sets that tone. So he's a 1. That you're starting there. Yeah. Snell's a 1. That 1-2 punch would be insane. That's why, like, Montgomery's good. I like him as a better fit in other places. Sure, if the Giants sign him, I'm not going to complain. And if they sign him and Chapman, I'm still super happy as a Giants fan. For some reason, I think the Snell upside there for me plays well in San Francisco. And the upside's higher for him, right? The floor is lower, but the upside's higher. And I think the Giants need that. You need a guy who, hey, he just won the Cy Young, and Robbie Ray won it a few years ago. Now you're talking like those 3 in a postseason.
There's your playoff. There's your playoff rotation right there. Yeah. So long as the Giants in across baseball, they don't do the opener so much that on somebody's baseball card eventually it'll say so and so opener, right? Yeah. That's when we know
it's not pretty.
That's when we know it's got too far.
Once in a while, cool, right? That's all good. But 3 out of 5 days, that's way too much.
That's a lot, yeah. Hey, last thing here for you. And the 2021 Giants, they were magic, right? And it was Crawford and Posey together, kind of one last dance. 107 wins, but 22 and 23, obviously they failed to recapture that. Actually, last year, mid-season, it looked like they were headed to the playoffs, and obviously second half just couldn't hit. I think Bob Melvin is going to bring the best he can to this group. I think he's going to maximize what they're all about. And I don't know where you think they stand entering this season. And again, this is right now. This is probably before 1 or 2 or more big moves. But how do you see him taking over that group? And where would you slate them right now if there were no changes?
So I think Bob Melvin's going to thrive. He's been one of the better managers in baseball for a while. I think the main problem was him and AJ Preller butting heads significantly. And if the two people that are leading a franchise are not getting along at all without going into so much detail, and you can read, like Ken Rosenthal put out a great article. There's been a lot of coverage about it. I think there's only so much you can do as a manager if there's so many issues going on. Like there was almost like a spying situation, not in a way that is like criminal, but just like where, AJ's got one of his guys who's hanging around. Read about it. It was weird, and it's not Bob Melvin's style. And I could even tell by the end of the season he was fed up and done. And I was shocked when they said he was coming back. So don't discount getting out of a crappy situation. I love the way the Padres have operated. I'm just saying that was a crappy situation for him this past season. He did not get along. I know he's been in the league for a while and he's had plenty of success. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder. He is going to want to kick ass with San Francisco. And I truly, sure, will he want to win as many games as possible anyway? Yes. But I feel like there's a different edge when you leave a team that gave up on you and was giving you a hard time, and then you go to another team within your division and an area that he's pretty comfortable with. So I think he's going to thrive, has to have the right pieces in place. And I think it signifies a move from wackiness to a little bit more of the traditional line that we've been talking about, because Bob Melvin can play both sides there. And I think, and I'm not even knocking Gabe Kapler as much. Like I think Farhan Zaidi, makes most of these decisions. He brought a lot of the good and some of the not so good that he did with the Dodgers. And so that's what we're seeing. And I think Bob Melvin can balance him out. So I'm a huge fan of what's going to happen there.
Well, Bob and Farhan worked together with the A's in the early to mid 2010s, so they've got that existing relationship. And you're right, it's Bob who's from here, who was a Giant as a player, and he's bringing Matty Williams back, like another Giant loved player, a forever Giant, back to his coaching staff. So I think better things are ahead for them. And I'll just say this at the end: nobody likes the Los Angeles deferrals around here. Their new name is, they're not the Dodgers anymore. They're just flat out they're going to have deferrals across their chest.
Well, dude, that's the last part that I didn't answer for you. I mean, obviously the Dodgers are ranked 1 in the NL West. If we're doing a quick power rankings,
they've gotta be, right? Yeah.
And for me though, right now, the Diamondbacks are ahead of the Giants right now.
Okay.
I'm sorry, they made the World Series, young up and coming team. They've done a lot this offseason.
That's fair.
They have one more move left in them. I think they're going to acquire a DH. So look at Jorge Soler, JD Martinez, or Justin Turner. I might be missing like one other bat, but out of those 3 or 4 that are like the DH types, I think they're going to get one of those guys. And then the Diamondbacks they're paid. So for me, if San Francisco does some of what we've been strategizing and spending their money as broadcasters for, then I think they potentially could lead to a number 2 spot. But for me right now, I have them on a fringe 3-4 with the Padres. And even right now, the way it is, I'd probably still put them at 4, right? Like even the young guys that are hopefully going to come through, like a Matos and a Luciano, we got to see what they bring to the mix. So right now, I'll probably put them at 4, and I'll put those teams ahead of them. But the upside this offseason, if they spend, is 2.
The dust definitely has to settle with them, right? And hopefully there's some more additions before all that takes place.